Hey everyone, welcome to my Absolute Beginner's Guide to Europa Universalis V. This is Rex. Feel free to leave a like and subscribe, and let's get started. We selected England as our starting nation. Now, while the in-game tutorial does a decent job in explaining some concepts, when you open a game, like most Paradox games, you're hit with information overload. When making this video, I considered a few different options on how to present this tutorial, but I found that if we start at the micro level and go over key concepts, we can then begin to understand how the game and decisions interact with each other. When we understand the micro details, the macro details and strategy will make more sense as the tutorial and the game progresses. Okay, so let's get started at the location level. Your country is actually divided into locations and provinces. The locations are the small individual regions where your settlements, towns, and cities are. These locations determine how much you can tax, how many soldiers you can raise, and how much political power you can accrue. Let's look at two different locations and compare them. Let's click on Oxford, and for now, just space out the information overload at first because there is a lot going on here on this screen. For now, let's just pay attention to the three symbols that symbolize taxation, control, and proximity. If I hover over the taxation symbol, I'm seeing in white that I currently have a tax base of 1.29, and the green symbol shows how much I'm actually earning by taxing this individual location. You can see how that number changes when I click on the location of Lynn. So obviously different locations have different incomes. When I click back on Oxford and hover over the taxation section, you may have noticed that this mentions that I'm currently taxing a tax base of 1.29, but my potential tax base is 5.18, which means that I actually could be earning a lot more if I apparently improve this control number. Now, control is a concept that is absolutely fundamental and critical to our understanding as the game mechanics rely on it. The control that you have over any given location is symbolized by the key symbol and is found to the left. If I hover over it, I see that my current control is 25%, and it's improving by plus 0.55% per month, but only up to a maximum of 25.33%. So the way to think about control is you are only getting essentially 25% of what the location produces or taxes. Let's hover over the monthly change percentage and see why it's increasing every month. So here it's saying that the baseline increase every month for our location is plus 0.10%, and we are getting further increases based on the average literacy of our nobles and the fact that our location is a core. Literacy can be improved by building certain buildings, and coring provinces is another mechanic that essentially means the location is owned or cored by your country, but let's not jump too ahead of ourselves as we will come back to this. Now, although our monthly change looks okay, let's look at the maximum control number that the monthly change is gradually progressing towards. If I hover over it, the reason it's stuck at 25% is because we have a sum of our average satisfaction, which is kind of low, the fact that it's a core location, the place is a town, and we have a temple here. But let's compare this same screen to Lynn. Oh, and really quick, we can see the control of every location in our country by clicking on the control map mode, which you can put down here. If we hover over the same screen as we did with Oxford when we're in Lynn, we see that the monthly change of this location is similar to Oxford, as they are both a town, same amount of average literacy, and they are a core location. But the maximum control is much higher. Let's look at why that is. They even have a lower average satisfaction than Oxford and the other same items, but see here how they are getting a much higher maximum control because of something called proximity to capital, which is absolutely key to improving your control. And while average satisfaction for your population is important, the biggest bang for your buck right now is actually the proximity. And that makes sense, right? If I'm asking for taxes or trying to exert my authority from my castle in London, it's a lot easier to do so the closer a location is. So proximity is found directly next to the control symbol, and if I hover over it, it will tell me what's affecting it. Just like the control map mode, there's a proximity map mode that's also color-coded and shows the shortest possible route from your capital, which starts at 100% proximity to the adjacent locations. So how is proximity determined? So this will be kind of detailed, but bear with me, as if we understand this, the other concepts will make a lot more sense. I'll probably go into too much detail about this, but if you space out the rest of this video, just remember to build roads between land locations and build buildings that improve harbor capacity and send your ships out on naval missions between two sea locations, which will all improve your proximity. But let's actually look at that in detail. So let's first touch on land proximity, and then we will look overseas to the overseas proximity with Lynn. Let's click on Oxford and see why our proximity is so low. And we see these yellow lines here. Basically, what happens is the number starts at 100 points wherever your capital is. Then the number keeps going down as you move from location to location until you get to your destination. The final number determines what your proximity is, which will then be the biggest modifier determining your control. So over land, by default, the cost of going between two locations has a base cost of 40 points. So let's trace this out. From London to Harrow, we see that plus 40 number here. But that is mitigated somewhat based on the fact that we have a gravel road already placed here. There are some other modifiers that we won't go into yet, such as the areas of farmland, and there is some development, a bridge, our ruler stats, but you can see the fact that we have a road here has made a big impact. Then we go from Harrow to St. Albans, and the same thing here. When we go from St. Albans to Aylesbury, the number is much higher because we don't have a road here, and the same from Aylesbury to Oxford. So you can see your roads, which you can see your roads, which can be upgraded for further improvements as the game progresses, by clicking on the road map here. Each territory that has a road in it is marked by red, and every territory that does not have one is marked in white. What we can do actually to build a road, in order to build a road, is on this symbol right here. Now we can connect it directly to an existing road already, but that may not be the quickest route. If I hover over London to build the road there, you see how the road will actually be built. Alternatively, you can click on your capital, London, and just build a road to Oxford directly. So let's build a road from London to Oxford, and we will see how the numbers change once the road is built. So that is land proximity. But what about overseas proximity? Because even though Lynn is technically farther than Oxford, its proximity is better because the people or messengers are utilizing sea travel rather than land travel, which is much more efficient. Let's click on the proximity map mode and then click on Lynn. We see the yellow lines as before, and the concepts compared to land travel are actually kind of similar. Now, similar to the land, going through a port costs 40 points, but going from sea zone to sea zone only costs 30 points. First, going through a port is primarily affected by something called harbor capacity of the location. So if I hover over the proximity of Lynn, I'm seeing that again we start at 100 points in London. Oh, and just to orient you, this is London obviously. Then we go into the Thames Sea Zone, then we move into the Anglican Coast, then to the Walsh Sea Zone, and then to Lynn. So let's go back. So from London to Thames, we're going through a port over land, which is 40 points. This is getting subtracted a bit from some similar modifiers we saw before, but notice that the harbor capacity is giving us the biggest benefit from the movement cost. And this makes sense, right? Because the larger a harbor we have, the more ships can go in and out, and the more efficient travel is. I can click on the harbor capacity map mode found in the geopolitical map mode, and I can see when I hover over London, I have a harbor capacity of 95% because I have 10% from a wharf and 85% from a natural harbor. Now, knowing this map mode exists is important because it may actually be beneficial to focus buildings in areas that have those natural harbor modifiers, such as Portsmouth and Poole down here. Okay, so let's click back on the proximity map mode and follow this overseas. So we understand the lower numbers from our ports from London to Thames and from Walsh to Lynn, but what about the larger numbers going from sea zone to sea zone? Well, that baseline cost from going from sea zone to sea zone is 30 points. This primarily depends on something called maritime presence. Now, because we have 50% maritime presence, the cost is halved to 15 points. So it is maritime presence. Well, that depends on the coastal territories you have, any ports along the coast, and if you have navies patrolling the area. If I actually click on the sea zone, I can see what our maritime presence is. If I hover over maritime presence, I can see that it will go up or down depending on if I have any coastal locations bordering the sea. For example, while the decay in the Thames is naturally minus 0.25 per month, this is mitigated by London and its port and all the adjacent locations. So if I build more ports or have more territories bordering a sea zone, I can mitigate this further. However, actually more impactful is using your Navy to patrol the sea. If I click on our Navy, click on Select a Mission, and click on Patrol, it will increase the maritime presence in the seas you select. Having more ships and faster ships will increase this further, but let's select this just for now. Let's go here, and this can be kind of finicky sometimes. Let's click on the three sea zones we're going to be focusing on now, and then our ships will go out and patrol this area. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is allow some time for our ships to go out and the roads to be built, and we will see how the control changes now that we are changing the proximity. Okay, welcome back. I fast forwarded the game a bit. Our roads are built, and let's take a look at what happened. Let's start with Oxford. Now, instead of negative 5% proximity in Oxford, we are actually now at 29%. Our maximum control improved from 25% to 48.2%, which essentially means once we get to 48%, we will have essentially doubled our taxes, manpower, and crown power of the location. Now let's take a look at the maritime presence. If I click on Thames, because I have my small navy there, we are now changing positively monthly instead of a gradual decay. Oh, and one last thing I'd like to touch on is pop satisfaction. So if we click back on Oxford and go to maximum control, we see that our average satisfaction is negative 4%. We're getting a negative 4% modifier in this location. The higher our satisfaction is, the more control we can get, which does make sense. There are events or policy decisions that will come up that will alter this, but we can manipulate this on our own as well. If I click on the demography tab, hover over the happiness tab, I can see what the readout of everyone's happiness is. For example, it looks like my least happy pop group is the English Catholic burghers. There are a lot of modifiers, but the biggest one says here that they are lacking furniture and fine cloth in the London market. You can also find a readout of this in your Society and People tab. You can also take a look at the satisfaction map mode as well. But basically, when we get to trade and the market in my economy tutorial, While it may not be as profitable to provide the needed goods your population needs, if your pops are happy and are supplied with those goods, this can also exponentially improve your control. So, okay, that was a lot. Now that we went through the basic but critical topics of control and proximity, we are ready to move on to the more macro topics such as the estates and the economy. This is Rex. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.